Hi everybody, it's Sonnie coming at you from Fukuoka, Japan. It's been a long time, like 6 months. So yeah, really long time. And I feel like I have a lot to tell you guys, but I promised myself that the next video that I made would be a specific one about a very specific topic, and therefore, among many other reasons, I've been putting it off. But it's something I really want to talk about, and it's something that I think many people should be really open with, and that there's a really big stigma against, and that there shouldn't be, because it's something that a lot of people struggle with. I want to talk about my mental health journey, maybe, different challenges that I've had. And before I get into it, I'm going to try to make this as light and positive as possible. It does have, you know, a good ending now for me. Not an ending, it's an ongoing thing, but I'm not in a really bad place right now. I'm doing okay, but some of the things I'm going to say maybe would require a trigger warning for some individuals. So if you don't want to hear about abuse, PTSD, depression, suicide, or suicidal thoughts, then maybe click away and watch one of my other videos. I think that's enough for an intro. Let's get into it. I've planned this video in my head so many times, and I've tried writing a script for it a million times. For the last 6 months, every single night, I have laid down and I've thought about how to start telling this story, and I came up with really great ways, and I was like, you got this, you can do this. And then I'm here now and I have no idea where to begin. This is something I've wanted to talk about for years, though, literally years, and I think it is about damn time. So maybe I should start with the fact that I have a new tattoo. Little flash of the new tattoo, and it's interwoven into the story of my mental health. So I will be revealing that, and maybe I'll do a separate video about getting a tattoo in Japan if you guys are interested in that. But I guess I should start at the beginning. When I was really young, I didn't grow up in the best family. I get a lot of comments all the time about how obviously my family is super rich and I'm very privileged, and I went to these amazing schools, and obviously I went to like these private rich boarding schools and all of this stuff, which I find so incredibly bizarre, because just because somebody is a very happy person doesn't mean that they've never had struggles in their life. So that was another reason that I wanted to talk about this. And so I wanted to address the fact that I choose to be happy every day, because I was really, really unhappy and angry for a really long time. And it's exhausting. I hope this inspires other people to make some changes in their lives and value their own happiness as well. A lot of my childhood I can't actually remember. A lot of the memories have been repressed, so to talk in depth about it isn't necessarily possible for me. But I believe, from everything that I've been told and from certain memories that I have, that from being born to around maybe 7 or so, I believe I had a happy upbringing. And it was only when I started having my own opinions that things kind of shifted. I was no longer really accepted for who I was as an individual, instead of as what my parents wanted me to be. And my biological father became physically abusive with that. I won't go into details about that. I don't think it's necessary, but it was witnessed by certain friends that when I refused to let them call or have, you know, someone or myself call Child Protective Services or whatever, it was too difficult for them to remain friends with me after what they had witnessed. And when people who are supposed to love you and support you, when they're the people that hurt you, especially as a child, It's really difficult to deal with, and it's really confusing. And so I got really, really angry, and I lashed out at school. I just got mad at the entire world and basically was like, how can nobody notice all of these signs? And, you know, I think as a child, you just expect that somebody is going to see and help you. And I didn't understand why nobody would help me. Because of that lack of control at home, I took it upon myself to try to regain some of that control. Now, this wasn't a conscious decision that I made. It's looking in retrospect to understand what I did. Didn't do any homework, cursed out my teachers, had lunch detention and got, lunch detention almost every day and got regular detention a lot. And that was my way to take control over something in my life. Among the physical abuse, there was also, emotional abuse of being told that I was useless and worthless and stupid and different things like that daily. And I was a disappointment, Eventually, 2 teachers made a really big impact in my life. The first teacher noticed me having a panic attack in class. It was in my Spanish class, 7th grade, so I was 13. We were having a Spanish test, and I just kind of started breaking down and crying and, hyperventilating and different things like that. And I was trying to keep everything contained. When I was in school, I grew my hair really, really long, and every day in class I would sit with it, kind of like this, so nobody could really see my face. And it was my way of kind of hiding. And so I was trying to keep everything contained, but she noticed anyway, and she asked if I could stay after class, and she shared a personal story with me about an assault that occurred to her and how it affected her. It was the first time that I felt like somebody saw me and that somebody understood. And it was the first time that I thought that somebody kind of believed that even with everything going on, that maybe I could do better with my life. And even with that, in junior high school, I still had to go to summer school both years to pass with everybody else. Then I met another teacher who was my literary arts teacher at that time. It was my freshman year. She challenged me, basically saying that, she saw something in me and that she didn't understand why I was letting myself get such bad grades and letting myself fail and not doing homework and all of this stuff, and said that she thought that I was smart. She basically challenged me to try, because that wasn't something that I was doing. Because if I tried and I failed, that's another thing that was out of my control. And it also confirmed every fear that I had and everything that I had ever been told, that I was stupid and I was going to be a stripper and drop out of high school and, all of that stuff. So I thought, okay, 1 marking period. I will try for 1 marking period and see how I do. And I did pretty good. I didn't fail anything. I didn't get any D's. I don't remember if I got a C. I got mostly A's and B's. From then on, I kept trying. And I started to gain confidence in myself. And when I actually took the SATs and got into college and graduated from high school, it was a really, really big deal to me. And it was something that I honestly didn't think would happen. The time when I started trying and started making these changes in my life also happens to coincide when I finally got a restraining order on my biological father. I was 16 and a half, and it was the day I got my first car. There was a big, loud, slightly public fight that occurred that in this case actually involved him and my mom. And another person was there, and they were the ones that called the cops, and the cops came and escorted him out. It wasn't the first time that he got taken away, but I was there for the first time when the cops asked if we wanted a restraining order, and I immediately jumped in and said absolutely yes, and basically looked at my mom and made her make the choice between him and me. At this point as well, my little brother and my little sister were around. Luckily, there's a really big age gap between us, so they don't have many memories of him or what happened or anything like that. But anyway, so after the restraining order and through the process with the courts and everything like that, I was required to go to a therapist for the first time in my life. And that's when I got diagnosed with PTSD. I think a lot of people only think of PTSD like occurring with soldiers coming back from war, but when you're a child in your home and you're just constantly scared, and every time that you have to go from like one room to the other and you're looking around and you don't know where certain individuals are or how they'll react to different situations, and just never truly feeling safe, always feeling vulnerable, always waiting for an attack. It's very common for children to experience PTSD. So I was diagnosed with PTSD, and when my mom was told about that, she refused to let me see a therapist ever again and said that there's nothing wrong with me, that they have no idea what they're talking about. And so when I went off to college, I started seeing the university therapist for free without letting her know. So I developed coping mechanisms for my nightmares and sometimes night terrors and panic attacks and anxiety, but they were never really great coping mechanisms. Also during college, I unfortunately lost 2 friends, and that was really young. I was 18 when my first friend passed away, high school friend from theater and a bunch of stuff, and it was drug related. And then when I was a senior in college, I lost another friend to suicide. And then I moved out and met Joe, and I was doing really, really well. And then we moved to Scotland, and we're doing a big time jump here. When we were supposed to leave Scotland, I wasn't handling it well. It was the first place where I felt really safe and at home, and I thought that I was just really upset about leaving Scotland, but it was pretty extreme. Crying all the time, like having breakdowns all the time. When we first came to Japan, every single time we left the house, I was just crying that we were in Japan. The Japanese culture and I don't necessarily mix, and I learned that pretty quickly. You're welcomed as a guest, but you're never going to be somebody that belongs here. And so going from a place that felt like home to here was really, really difficult for me. And I just kept, like, my mental health just kept deteriorating over time. And then some pretty horrible things happened here that is actually even more personal than everything else that I've talked about. I wasn't doing well. And by wasn't doing well, I mean couldn't get out of bed, and couldn't get up the energy to eat, shower. I still made myself go to work, like shower the days that I have to go to work and stuff like that. But anytime that I didn't have to, it was really bad. There was a time where I tried meditating to see if that would help it, and I'm trying to relax and I'm trying to listen and follow along with these meditation things, and they are saying, you know, only think about the breath, concentrate on the breath, and I'm doing that and I'm sobbing the entire time, like can't breathe, like you know, like and it got so bad that I couldn't function, and Joe's just looking at me with tears in his eyes because he's saying, what can I do? And I'm just crying, saying, I just feel hopeless and empty and like I'll never ever be happy again. And it was terrifying. We moved down to Fukuoka and found a doctor that was actually a Western doctor, because I had some really bad experiences with Japanese doctors. So he's located here in Fukuoka, and he's wonderful, and he's from Europe. I finally got to the point where I knew I needed to talk to him when I was laying in bed and crying, and I don't know, it was multiple days of laying in bed crying, and I just started thinking, you know, death wouldn't be so bad. And that scared me so badly, because I have never ever thought anything like that before. As an atheist, I'm terrified of death, because I think, you know, lights out, that's it, that's done. And I was thinking, you know, at least I got to live in Europe, at least I got to travel a bit, at least, you know, I got married to an amazing man, and I did all of these things that I never ever thought I would do. I never thought I'd ever trust or love anyone enough to be able to get married. But that thought scared me so bad that I was like, I have to go to the doctor and I need to talk to someone. And there's no real therapists here in Japan. They don't really believe in mental health problems and things. But I talked to my doctor. Joe had an appointment in a couple of days, and I'm like, I'm just gonna come to your appointment and hijack it, you know, when you're done. The doctor took it really seriously, and he took out a piece of paper and just said, what symptoms are you experiencing? And I started, you know, circling and checking off certain things, and there were 13 symptoms. And he said, if you check off more than 3 or more than 4, then you absolutely have depression. But maybe it's not to the extent of medication or whatever. I checked off every single one. So then I was put on medication for the first time. And I'm on Lexapro. I have been on medication since. It's been over a year now. But the more that I looked into depression and the more that I learned about it, the more that I realized that I've had symptoms of it since at least 15. I remember the first time that I had a bad bout of it. I was in my room, I was in the dark, I was crying, I was like watching sad stuff, and my mom came in and she was like, you're acting like you just got dumped or something, like what's going on? And I said, you know, I don't know, I don't know. And my whole life, I thought other people just had that, where sometimes they just break down for days and, you know, cry in the dark, and they can't figure out why they're doing it, and they can't pinpoint the reason that they feel just horrible. But now I know that's not a thing. It got better. I was put on 10 milligrams, but then after a couple of weeks, I had this, once again, really bad slump, and I thought that I went back to the beginning, and I was so scared that it wasn't working. Joe was just desperate to get me out of the house and, you know, thought that that would be good for me. So at one point, like, we had a date night scheduled, but I was having this day where I just couldn't move and just kept crying over everything, and he was like, let's just go, and if you're feeling really, really bad or worse, then we'll come back, but let's just try it, you know? I went out, and we were at this intersection, and I just said to Joe, like, there's a little pet shop, like, 2 blocks that way. If we turn left instead of right, like we're supposed to, can we go there, kind of a deal? And he was like, whatever you want, whatever's gonna make you happy, hell yeah, we'll do that, let's go. So I went into the pet shop, and there was this little, like this big, brown teacup poodle puppy. And I stuck my finger in between the cage, and it started like chewing on my fingers or something. And Joe looked at me and said that it was the first time that he saw me smile in days. And he was like, oh, do we have to get you a dog? Like, we've been waiting to get you a dog until we like settle down, but should we get you a dog? And yeah, that's one of the big ways that Joe got convinced to rescue a dog here in Japan, and that's how we got Keone. My medication also got bumped up to 20 milligrams, which is what I'm on now. It's still not perfect. It's not like, you know, a pill solves everything, but it is a genetic thing in my family. Alcoholism runs in my family on both sides. Drug addiction runs in my family on one side, maybe both sides, I don't freaking know. The gene that causes alcoholism is the same gene that carries depression with it. So if you have an alcoholic in your family, then you have the potential for depression as well. And there are a lot of studies about the positive impacts of having dogs actually with depression. I've wanted a dog for years, so yeah, but she helps. She definitely helps. I haven't had one of those incredibly dark days, and I haven't had any suicidal thoughts, and I haven't had anything like that since we got Keone. So my depression and my struggles with depression is one of the reasons why here in Japan I have been making fewer and fewer videos, and I've had longer and longer gaps between them. It's hard to get the motivation to do anything, let alone something that you don't have a deadline for, and it's just yourself motivating you. And so that brings me to my new tattoo. I basically, every country that I live in, I want to get a tattoo in. So my son, I got in America. It represents me, where I came from. And then my always, I got in Edinburgh. It's, where Harry Potter was written, and I will always love Edinburgh. And it's also for Joe and my wedding vows. We said forever and always instead of like until death do us part. So I wanted something significant for my time here in Japan. Not specifically Japanese, but something that really is like a positive thing about Japan for me. What I eventually thought of was my kind of conquering and overcoming my challenges with mental health. When I first realized that it was depression that I had, that it was something that was happening to me, that I didn't have the proper chemicals in my brain and my serotonin wasn't being created, so I needed, store-bought ones instead. I actually tried a method that I saw online that lets you separate yourself from the impacts of depression. And it's successful for a lot of people, where you give your depression a name, and that will allow you to kind of separate and to conquer some of it. Unfortunately, mine was at such severity that it didn't work for me, but for a time I kept calling it my Dementor. Yay, Harry Potter stuff! So, if you don't know, in Harry Potter, the Dementors actually represent depression. And the way that they're described as how they impact you is that you feel empty and cold and hopeless, like you will never ever be happy again. And that's exactly how I felt. So I thought it was very appropriate to call it my Dementor. And I couldn't think of a name that was good for the Dementor. I just kept calling it my Dementor. But me conquering that and getting out of that inspired my tattoo. And basically in Harry Potter, what you do to conquer and get your Dementor to leave you alone is with a spell, and it produces your Patronus. So Expecto Patronum creates a Patronus, and that is an animal that is your protector. There's like quizzes on pottermore.com that you can take to figure out your Patronus, and I took it twice. The first time that I took it, I got a Basset Hound, which is the same thing that Eddie Redmayne got, by the way. And then the second time I took it, I got a Saint Bernard. It talked about loyalty, and that's one of the reasons that I got a dog each time, I guess. But I thought about that, and I didn't want to get a specific dog breed as my Patronus, but I wanted something to encapsulate that it was a dog. So what I ended up getting was a wolf, the species that all dogs were created from. And for my wolf, I actually got a bandage wrapped around the left ankle to represent Keone and her role in getting me out of my depression as well. So I got that done in Tokyo at the Red Bunny Tattoo Studio, and that's actually in Kichijoji. And I had Magnus. My tattoo artist is a Swedish guy who lives here and is married to a Japanese woman named Magnus, and he's amazing, and we had so much fun. The tattoo took 4.5 hours. I absolutely love it. She's my protector. This is probably an incredibly long video. It was really, really difficult for me to make, but I'm really glad that I did and that it's over. And now in other videos, I can kind of casually talk about my experiences with depression. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It's something that a lot of people go through, and it shouldn't be stigmatized. It's just a chemical imbalance in your brain. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this wasn't an incredible bummer. I'm sorry if this didn't interest you at all. I probably won't be making any more content like this because that's my story. That's it. I know it was long, but I wanted to tell it. And if you're experiencing anything like this, please get help for it. And I lived with this for over 15 years, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I hope that you don't wait that long to get help if you need it. If you want to talk to me about your experiences or help that you could potentially get, leave a comment for me. And thank you again so much for watching. I will hopefully see you again soon. I don't have to think about this anymore. That's awesome. Okay, bye.
Hey guys, Sonnie coming at you from Fukuoka, Japan. Do it. Hi everybody.
My heart is racing so hard.